This is all obvious nonsense, theological bull. Christianity is obsessed with sin.
Famous atheist Richard Dawkins attacked ex-atheist, now born-again Christian Ayaan Hirsi Ali's faith in front of the whole crowd, but when she responded, the crowd reacted like this.
The teachings of...
So in this video, you're not only going to see her response, you'll see why it shuts him down, how the crowd reacted, and how it exposes the foolishness of his entire worldview. So here's the first clip.
That's a moving personal story, but to call yourself a Christian is a bit different. I mean, a Christian has to believe in something. And, I mean, well, you go to church now, and you listen to the vicar, and do you kind of notice what a lot of nonsense he talks? I mean, do you really take it seriously that Jesus is the Son of God, Jesus rose from the dead, Jesus was born of a virgin, and that's part of Christianity?
I mean, just before she responds, you see how he's setting this up. You know, it's like, yeah, your story is really moving, and Christianity, there's loads of great things about it, but obviously you don't believe that nonsense. And laying it down to really press into her insecurity so that if she does respond by saying, I absolutely believe these things, he'll present her as a nutcase, a grown-up child who's still believing these fairy tales. But just see how she responds. She doesn't take the bait. Her response is incredible.
So I think because you, and I know you very well, we've been friends for a long time, and in fact, in some ways, I think of you as a mentor. I would say you're coming at this from a place of there is nothing. And what has happened to me is I think I have accepted there is something. And when you accept that there is something, and there is a powerful entity, for me, the God that turned me around, I think what the vicar is saying no longer sounds nonsensical. It makes a great deal of sense. And not only does it make a great deal of sense, it's also layered with the wisdom of millennia. And so, like you, I did mock faith in general, and probably Christianity in particular, but I don't do that anymore. And again, that is where the humility comes into it, is it doesn't seem, in 2024, after I went through that experience, it doesn't seem nonsensical to me, and it doesn't, I don't mock it. I think I've come down to my knees to say, perhaps those people who've always had faith have something that we who lost faith don't have. And people who have faith also, like the woman who told me, well, you've tried everything and you've lost hope, you've lost faith. Try it, pray. I think just in that one word, there is so much wisdom and that it's, I am stuttering and I'm staggering to say, I'm just trying to say, no, it's not stupid.
So this is an incredible response for several reasons. Firstly, she doesn't accept the bait. She doesn't allow herself to feel like she needs to justify to him and prove to him that she's really a rational thinker, even though she believes the Bible is a historical book and believes what the Bible teaches. She doesn't accept the fight. Secondly, though, she, in a very humble way, challenges his very assumptions that a lot of us can be very quick to accept. So many atheists will try and make you think that believing in the supernatural is just for kids. It's fairy tales, and rational grown-up people only believe in what we can see and what we can test scientifically and what we can prove. And if miracles by their definition are not natural, therefore they cannot exist. And all the grown-ups realize that. And she I don't know if you noticed it, she very subtly and humbly showed him why actually that's an assumption that you choose, but that's not the only rational assumption. You see, Dawkins is someone who comes at it, as she said, starting from a premise that only natural things occur, starting from a premise that there is nothing, even though we all accept that the universe had a beginning. However the universe began is clearly not the same way that the universe operates now. Otherwise, we'd constantly have universes being created that we could see. We didn't see the universe being created. We can't replicate that. Therefore, it's at least supernatural compared to what we experience. And so atheists want to say, I accept the supernatural beginning of the universe, but other than that, no supernatural things can take place. And you're irrational for ever believing that these things are the case. And not only that, atheists want you to believe that if you think this world we live in, that's so complex yet so ordered, was designed by a creator, you're a fool. So that's like me saying, this house, this room that I'm in right now, there was no builder. It just kind of gradually evolved over time. There was no external guide. There was no intelligence to it. The bricks just laid on themselves, and that Monopoly board just kind of ended up there, and the plaque just ended it. And you think somebody built it? You're a fool. Don't be ridiculous. That's what the atheist wants you to think, and that you're foolish for challenging that. And she rejects that framing and instead says that when she looks at the world around her, she sees what the Bible teaches about how the world works, how life ought to be lived, what Jesus teaches about humanity, how Christianity leads to the most prosperous and compassionate societies. It seems to suggest that the Bible has so much wisdom, and she's experienced living in societies that rejected the wisdom of the Bible and says, I don't want to live that way. I think what these people who trusted in the Bible, what these people who wrote the Bible saw made sense. Maybe there's some other wisdom in that book. Maybe some of the things that might be difficult to grasp at first might not actually be far-fetched, because clearly there's a wisdom that's greater than I. And that's why she talked about humility. And that was why her response was so incredible, and something that we can model when we come across people who mock us. But it doesn't just stop there. The attacks keep coming, and she keeps on shutting them down one by one, and the crowd sees it this time. Let's watch.
Let's take the moral thing first. Islam is a nasty religion. I think we agree about that. But Christianity is not all that nice either. And when you think about Christianity, Christianity is obsessed with sin. St. Augustine said that we all inherit the sin of Adam. Well, of course he didn't exist, but so we inherit original sin. Original sin came down in the semen. Jesus was not conceived with semen, that's why he's clear of sin. His mother Mary had to be clear of sin as well, so she had to have an immaculate conception. This is all obvious nonsense. This is all theological bull. And the idea that humanity is born in sin and has to be cured of sin by Jesus being crucified, Jesus being punished for all our sins. And that is a morally very unpleasant idea. I'm sure you must agree about that.
So again, you see the framing there. It's like, these things are morally reprehensible. Surely you don't believe in that. Augustine said that the sin is passed in the semen. Surely you think that's ridiculous. And now, I've not read everything that Augustine has said, but if there's any evidence he said that sin is transferred through the semen, you let me know down below in the comments. And we won't even have time in this video to unpack what the actual doctrine of original sin is and debunk this straw man. But one thing's for certain is that the way that Ayan responds to this one as well is even more brilliant than the first time around. Let's see how she responds.
I find that Christianity is actually obsessed with love.
Come on now.
And that the teachings of...
And this is where the crowd gets it. Like, this is where the crowd sees what's going on and doesn't fall for the games. Let's continue to hear what she says.
The teaching of Christ, as I see it, and again, I'm a brand new Christian, but what I'm finding out, which is the opposite of growing up as a Muslim, the message of Islam, but the message of Christianity I get is that it's a message of love, it's a message of redemption, and it's a story of renewal and rebirth. And so Jesus dying and rising again, for me, symbolizes that story. And in a small way, I felt like I had died and I was reborn. And that story of redemption and rebirth, I think makes Christianity actually a very, very powerful story for the human condition and human existence, and the pain of suffering, but also our internal, the recognition of what you call sin, but perhaps the character defects, that both good and evil are there, but that both good and evil are in us. I think those teachings in Christianity are far more powerful and have led to, I think, the flourishing of Western civilization compared to, say, growing up as a Muslim when I was taught that really the only way for you to be faithful is to fear, naked fear, and to have these sets of obligations which you basically obey. And that was very much about power, it was centered around hellfire and all of these other things. And so Christianity, as I experienced, I'll give you an example. When I was an atheist and I was going all over both the United States and all over Europe, mocking Christians, making fun of them, making fun of faith, as you're doing now, dear Richard. I was walking with 6 to 7 men at any given time, protecting me, armed, from things that I said that were offensive to Muslims, or Muslims thought were offensive to them.
Wow.
Christians were writing me letters saying, you know, we're going to pray for you, you're misguided. And I think that alone defines for me the distinction between Christianity in general, mainstream Christianity, and mainstream Islam.
Well,
now you see how incredible that response was. Richard Dawkins saying that Christianity is obsessed with sin is like someone saying that a husband is obsessed with control because he says that his wife shouldn't sleep with other men and she shouldn't, you know, go away for 2 years and not communicate with him and not come back. She should look after the children. And it's like, but these are the requirements for faithfulness. These are the requirements for a healthy marriage. The obsession is not with sin. The obsession is with unity. The obsession is with justice. The obsession is with commitment. And the perfect example of that is what Jesus says when he sums up the whole law. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, and soul. Love your neighbor as yourself. You will not find that in other religions. You will not find that in atheism. You will not find that anywhere. That love being the central driver. And it's so incredible that Ayan chooses to respond to these attacks with humility and by just showing the example. Look, if this religion was really the religion obsessed with sin, then when all of the Muslims were coming at me and when the Christians were coming at me, they were coming with different messages. The Christians were coming with, I'll pray for you. The Muslims were coming with the sword. You know, what I would do to you. I probably couldn't even say it on this video, what the Muslims were saying. And I think that, again, sums up an incredible response where she chooses not to take the bait. Now, even though she acknowledges that she's a young Christian at this time, and who knows, maybe there are loads of things that you heard her say and you think, I wish she could have said that. I wish she would have said this. I wish she would have been clearer about trusting in the supernatural, maybe better explain the crucifixion, resurrection. No matter what your doctrinal improvements may have been, one thing is for certain, you do not have to be a scholar or an expert to talk about how Jesus Christ has changed your life. You do not have to be a scholar or an expert to show even the most staunch, famous atheists, people who have made their living attacking this man, this belief that they think is so-called nonsense. As much as Richard Dawkins may think it's nonsense, he's definitely put a lot of money in his pocket. I'll tell you that, is definitely is fed his family well. You don't have to be an expert to let these people know that, look, I follow a God who's about love. I follow a God who's about justice. And yes, justice does mean that sin is punished, but let's not act as if there's a way to be forgiven. So you can spend all your time talking about how Christianity is brutal and everything else, whilst not having any better alternative to come up with. We know that the new atheism experiment is dead. We know that it's not led to any societal good. And yet, the gospel will continue to go forward. Jesus Christ will still continue to save souls. And he still offers forgiveness to all of us who will reach out to him. Now, if you want to see some compelling evidence for why you can trust in the resurrection, then check out this video. I know it will bless you. I'll see you in the next one. Peace and blessings.